Welcome to the Basketball Sessions Podcast, a podcast where we talk about what's happening in basketball. This is episode 3 of the pod. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the NBA Finals, a recap of the NBA Finals, the NBA coaching and player movement so far as the offseason is about to start, or it has started since the finals just finished. And of course, we also have Gilas Pilipinas build up to the World Cup. We got updates about that. And we also have a little bit of a proud moment for Filipinos as the very first Filipino player will be inducted in the FIBA Hall of Fame. So listen up, everyone. Basketball is in session. Welcome to the Basketball Sessions podcast brought to you by KGE Network. My name is Klein. Thanks to everyone who supports, follows, shared, and subscribed to the pod. And if you're not subscribed yet, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified when we have a new episode. And let's begin with the NBA Finals recap. The Denver Nuggets won the NBA Finals, making it the first title in the team's 47-year NBA history. Nikola Jokic led the way for Denver, averaging 30 points per game, 13.55 rebounds, and 9.5 assists per game in the playoffs. And then he averaged 30.2 points per game, 14 rebounds per game, and 7.2 assists in the finals on his way to winning the Bill Russell Finals MVP award. And Jamal Murray, for his part, averaged 26.1 points per game, five rebounds, uh, it's 5.7 rebounds per game actually, and 7.1 assists, and that's for the playoffs. And then he stepped up in the finals with averages of 21.4 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, and 10 assists. And those two are the main 1-2 combo uh, of the Nuggets, of course. Plus, uh, they also have the supporting casts like Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell Pope, KCP, who actually won his second ring, and all of the other players that contributed to the first title in franchise history. And the Nuggets proved that defense wins championships as they held the Miami Heat to an average of 92.7 points in the finals games that they won. And one interesting fact is that Coach Michael Malone mentioned something that's very interesting at the presser after the finals about what Pat Riley actually said about the evolution in the game that you go from a nobody to an upstart, and then an upstart to a winner, and then a winner to a contender to a champion. And then once you're a champion, it's an evolution to from a champion to a dynasty, is what he says. And actually, that's actually what happened, or that was the Nuggets' path was to becoming a champion as they started on becoming a playoff team, and then they won a couple of rounds in the playoffs, but of course, they lost to the conference finals, and they basically just kept building on a culture of winning, and then they became contenders. And but they've had injury setbacks, which I think actually derailed their journey a little bit. And after that, once they became healthy, and that was this season. Now that they were healthy enough, and all the other pieces falling into place, they won it all. Now, on the opposite side for Miami, though, it wasn't actually a failure of a season, as what Giannis mentioned when they got eliminated by the said Heat or by the team, Miami. Um, it's something to be proud of, actually, as they were the only the second eight-seeded team that got to the finals. Of course, New York was the very first team to do that back in 1999, who, of course, fell or also came up short to the San Antonio Spurs, or my San Antonio Spurs. But yeah, going back, Miami is the second team or the second eight seed team that got to the finals. Although they did came up short, they can actually just build upon this and improve for next season. And so this is also the same basically for the other 28 teams who now begin to tinker their lineups to set up for success onto next season, basically. And it all starts with the NBA draft and, of course, free agency as well, which, of course, is our next topic with the NBA news and coaching and player movement. Starting off with the coaching news, as Frank Vogel is now the Phoenix Suns head coach, having an 11-year experience as head coach prior to joining the Phoenix Suns. Vogel was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, the Orlando Magic, and the Los Angeles Lakers, and winning a championship with the Lakers in 2020. Now, the Houston Rockets hire former Boston Celtics head coach Ime Udoka. The 45-year-old Udoka, who took the Celtics to the NBA Finals in his only season there, takes over from Steven Silas, who was fired after three dreadful seasons in Houston. And Udoka is coming off that suspension from Boston, the indefinite suspension due to the issues that he had, off court issues that he had back when he was a coach there in Boston. But afterwards, before he got hired by the Rockets, the Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta actually already checked that with the NBA, and he said that Udoka was remorseful of what happened. Didn't or Udoka didn't mention any details anymore of that particular incident or the about the issue. But he was hired to be the next head coach of the Houston Rockets to handle one of our Filipino brothers, or one of our half Filipino, Jalen Green, the young star, and the very young Houston Rockets, who are actually looking to add up veteran players to the team for this season to combine with those young upstarts or the young guns that they have. Jabari Smith, who's the third pick of last year. And then they also have Alperen Şengün from Turkey, the young big man that kind of plays like Nikola Jokic as well. He's been called the Nikola Jokic light version. So Good luck to them and the Houston Rockets. And moving on with the Toronto Raptors, making Darko, I'm not sure if I'm going to be pronouncing this right, Darko Rahakovic as the 10th head coach in franchise history. Rahakovic replaces Nick Nurse, who was fired who was fired on April 21st after Toronto went 41 and 41 and lost in the opening round of the play-in tournament. Rahakovic was a head coach for 2 seasons in the G League before joining Oklahoma City Thunder as an assistant before the 2014-2015 season. And then he spent the 2019-2020 season as an assistant with Phoenix and then joining Memphis the following year before becoming Toronto's head coach for next season. And as mentioned, we also have trade rumors coming out, especially since the offseason has started, and news coming out about trades for the upcoming NBA draft has or have surfaced with teams trying to move up. Now, news coming out of the New Orleans Pelicans camp showing that they want to get the top two or top three pick and might include Zion Williamson in the deal to get there or to get to that trade. Of course, Zion Williamson was the first overall draft pick of the Pelicans back in 2019 and has been a great player when he plays. That's it, you know. And that has been the story of his career so far, as he has been struggling to keep himself on the floor. Injury has kept him from showing his potential as a great player for most of his young career, only playing a total of 114 games for his entire career. But that's a short career, of course, and that's a span of about almost 40 years, 3 years in total, actually, because he missed the whole 2021-22 season due to an injury and he, prior to that, though, he played 61 games. That's the most games he played for his career or for a season or within a season. But last year or this year, only 29 games total played uh, before he got sidelined again last January with another injury and then complications uh, for that or with that injury on February to get shut down. So he was shut down for the whole year already. Although that's also one of the reasons or one of the things that really got uh, or I mean the injury or being injury prone is why his uh 200 million rookie max contract extension, which he signed last year, it does have some injury protections on it, and it's not going to be fully guaranteed. It's just like what the it's kind of like it's not exactly that, but it's kind of like the same contract that Joel Embiid got when he signed an extension with the Philadelphia 76ers, wherein they talk about having gateways or having particular things that he needs to accomplish along the way for that contract to become a fully guaranteed or it's not going to be fully guaranteed, but to be basically a max contract as well, which is also what Zion Williamson signed last July, wherein it does have protections from injury, and That's not going to be fully guaranteed if he does get injured again. So if ever that team would trade for Zion Williamson, they would likely get that particular protection if they do trade for him. And that's one of the things that are being talked about right now. Where if you are the New Orleans Pelicans, would you be trading Zion Williamson, your number one pick? Uh, they say that he's a generational talent uh, that came in, and I do think that he's a great player. One of those guys that is very unstoppable inside. Other than Shaq, they say he was or he is the only guy to play under the rim that is very unstoppable when he plays. That's the question mark there. That he's really very volatile or very fragile when it comes to playing. He has been injured a lot, and that is why his stock right now is not that very high. Plus, of course, he's had recently a couple of issues that had came out. That's personal matters as well. Had came out recently. So those are the things that you would think. Uh, you first think about if you're a team trying to trade for Zion Williamson and you're looking to get, of course, a generational talent as well. He's been very, very good when he's out there. So that's the big trade off for trying to get Zion Williamson, of course, as he would be uh, an injury prone type of player with a rookie max contract. Speaking of which, or speaking of max contract, Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards are rumored to mutually look to trade him. Of course, Bradley Beal is going into his second year from the 5 year supermax contract that he signed last year or July of last year. Now, the reason the Wizards have to work with Beal on a trade is because his contract also has a no trade clause. This means that Beal has a say if they want to trade him and where he can go. And a lot of teams come up on the rumor mill. Of course, Miami is one of the teams. Then you got the Lakers, of course, they're included. The Knicks as well, big market teams, of course. But the problem is, though, with those teams, a lot of the teams that are rumored to be destinations for Bradley Beal is that um, it's because of the contract of Bradley Beal, the supermax contract. There are a lot of complications when it comes to trading for that supermax contract, and so you want to try to steer clear of that because upon getting a supermax player, Bradley Beal is not going to be your number one option in the team. He more likely to be a number two or a second option. And who would want that? I mean, you want your number two star, you're paying him supermax contract, a huge amount of your roster space, of your salary cap, and he's just a number two guy. Who would want that? Of course, it can be done. Teams have had in the past teams have had contracts like John Wall, Russell Westbrook's contract, uh, things that are contracts that you think can't be traded or can't be dealt. There have been teams that have taken contracts like that. So I know that Bradley Beal's Supermax contract, there's someone or there's a team that would definitely want to get Bradley Beal an easy 25 to 30 point scorer to add to your team. Who doesn't want to add that? It's just that complications with his contract is definitely there is definitely a team that would take that, and I do think that the best option for Bradley Beal or for Beal is that the Heat, the Miami Heat, can actually do that. And of course, the legend Riley. Once he tries to lure you in, and he has in the past has been able to create a super team. Uh, Back in 2010, we all remember that the decision that LeBron James and the Miami Heat had. So I think Bradley Beal is also going to be perfect as the second fiddle to Jimmy Butler. It's going to be perfect. Perfect. It's going to be perfect fit for both the team and Beal. Again, he's going to be the second option for Miami. Jimmy Butler is still going to be number one there, and then you got Bam as your third option. That's a perfect fit for both. It's a win-win situation, basically, and they do have the assets to try and trade for him. It's just a matter of if the Wizards are willing to do it. Of course, the package that will be coming back from Miami, I would think it'll include Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson's contract, and future picks that they would add. I'm not sure if Miami still has some, but definitely those are the things or the guys that you would include, and the Wizards would be thinking of getting back as a package for Bradley Beal. And of course, that also would include Beal's decision if he wants to go to Miami as well. As again, with that no trade clause in his contract, that complicates a little bit of the situation for Bradley Beal. And then rounding out the rumor mill, of course, the last few weeks has been the Portland Trail Blazers trying to trade the third pick of the draft to, of course, get immediate help for Damian Lillard. And recently, reports came out that they might also, or that there have been reports of Damian Lillard moving, or that they might trade Lillard and just keep the third pick instead of trading that pick, and they will just move on from Dame and his potential contract as well. But ESPN's Brian Windhorst has actually um, came out with the news that Portland and Lillard are still very much all in together to try and win the championship. And of course, Damian Lillard is an old school type of guy that he's not gonna leave Portland that easy, and he's one of those guys that he's not made that way that he's gonna request to trade out. I've watched the JJ Redick. Uh, I've watched the interview of JJ Redick on his podcast called "The Old Man and the Three." They interviewed Dame And he spoke about this where the league is changing, uh, where because when he first entered the league, you've got guys who were veterans, old guys as veteran mentors that can mentor the young guys who are coming in. So he's got vets to mentor him along the way. But now, um, there are a lot of young guys who are the veterans in a team. And he mentioned that back then, you actually have to earn your place in the NBA. Even though you're talented, even though you're good with what you do, I mean, super talented players come in and out of the league. But even though you're that, or even if you're that talented, you still needed to earn your place in the NBA. That's what Dame said in that interview, and that back then there were a lot of veterans who showed you, who mentored the young guys that came in, basically showed the rope on how you navigate through the NBA. But nowadays, he says that the NBA changed, and of course, change is constant. You do get change, although it's a change for a different side or a change for a bad or the worse. It's because a lot of young, like I mentioned, a lot of young guys now are the veterans in the league, and that these guys are given the key to the franchises, to the teams. While they're still young, they're given a ton of money, and a ton of expectations are on their shoulders. So a lot of teams, or a lot of guys now, a lot of players now, as Dame said, or as Dame mentioned, are entitled. They're more entitled, um, and that's not the way that he was, or that he played back then when he entered. So uh, basically, that's one of the things. That's why it's really more likely that the Blazers are going to trade the pick for a much needed help for Dame. Up next, we have the Gilas Pilipinas build up to the World Cup update. So stick around for that. The Philippine men's national basketball team, or the Gilas Pilipinas team, has recently announced the 21-man pool for the 2023 FIBA World Cup, which the Philippines is co-hosting along with Japan and Indonesia. The pool is headlined by the three naturalized players: NBA star free agent Jordan Clarkson, resident import Justin Brownlee, and former Ateneo center Ange Kwame. It also includes Gilas mainstays Sai Soto, Dwight Ramos, Japet Aguilar, Junmar Fajardo, Kiefer and 30 Rabena, Chris Newsom, CJ Perez, Jordan Heading, Roger Pogoy, Scotty Thompson, Jamie Malonzo, Hoy Eran, Ray Parks Jr., Albin of Tana, Lenz Abando, and youngsters AJ Edu and Carl Tamayo. Gilas returned to practice last Wednesday to start their build up to the World Cup, which is set on August 25th to September 10th. And the 14 players were able to attend that practice, although some are still nursing injuries like Junmar, Roger Pogoy, Parks, and Calvin Oftana. Clarkson, Brownlee, and Soto and Ramos, and with heading are still, well, those three that I mentioned, Clarkson, Brownlee, and Soto, are still in the States. Brownlee, though, actually recently just came back, although there have been news that he contracted COVID. So he's on the mend and he's recovering. And then Soto is still in the States attending mini camps, last of which he attended was with New York. But news came out that he had a great minicamp in Dallas, his second one. And we heard that he's only going to have three mini camps that was set up for him to at least join. He does have those hopes of joining a team in the NBA Summer League, while Jordan Clarkson is still negotiating a deal with the Utah Jazz, or maybe just enter free agency this off season. And recent reports, though, also came out that youngster Carl Tamayo has begged off from the pool, citing a knee injury, and that will keep him out of the lineup during the training camp. So he has begged off already. So that makes the pool down to 20 players instead of 21. And Gilas is set to play games against European teams with their European training camp. They're going to be playing Estonia, Finland, Lithuania, and Latvia is set. Plus, a pocket tournament in China in early August is still being set up. Now, Gilas will start the World Cup against Dominican Republic in the Philippine arena. Then they will take on Angola and they will play Italy last in their group phase. Both it's going to be played both at the Smart Araneta Coliseum, and definitely we will look into the FIBA World Cup teams in other upcoming episodes of the pod. We'll be talking about that more into those teams potentially in other episodes, because of course that's a big event as it is going to be the World Cup. Meanwhile, with that Gilas pulled down to 20, a lot of the fans are clamoring to add or replace that pool, because of course one spot is going to be missing, and but the spot itself or that pool is actually not just, or it's not set in stone. It's not like FIBA had a restriction for that. But definitely, people want to just replace one of the bodies that begged off, and a lot of players have come out as suggestions from um, Filipino fans or Filipino basketball fans, like they want to add Justin Baltazar to the lineup. That's the biggest name that I've seen and I've heard that they want to add to the lineup, of course, as Justin was a cadet or a previous player as well from the Gilas. But the problem is, though, with that, if they try to add Balti to the lineup, is the camp that they're going to be going into in Lithuania in Europe, of course, requires to try and get visa. So they said that it's not going to be, or there's not going to be enough time for that. Plus, of course, we don't know what Balti's camp has plans for him. His availability is also going to be a concern for that if he does want to play for Gilas, or if he wants to be added onto that. And definitely, it's just going to be coach's decision or the team's decision if they just want to add that. As I've also read that Coach Chotro has mentioned that that is why you do have a pool players for those types of cases where some of the players are injured. They do get injured while they're in training camp. You have a pool where you can get players out of. And again, it's not set in stone, so this might still be tweaked. And they do get commitments from these players before they pick them up or they before they name them in the pool. So we don't know for sure what happened with that. So anyways, moving on. Again, I mentioned though at the last part of this episode, there is going to be a proud moment for us Filipinos. As FIBA has announced the latest inductees of the FIBA Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2023, which will be enshrined on August 23rd in Manila before the World Cup tips off. And one of the members of the class is the big difference, Kaloy Loizaga. Loizaga led the Philippine team to a third place finish in the 1954 FIBA World Championship, and he was a mythical team member in that tournament. And that third place finish is still the best finish by any Asian country ever. So that tells us, or that shows off that basketball here in the Philippines is really big, that we were winning back then. And as the only Asian team to end up in the podium. So with that, we end today's session. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to be notified when another episode of the Basketball Sessions podcast come out. Thank you, Lord God. Thank you, everyone. Peace.